As we continue our summer tradition of congregant speakers throughout the summer, it's my honor to call up our speaker for this evening, Lisa Solomon, who all I'll say, I think she's going to introduce herself in the context of her talk, but all I'll say is she teaches at the design school at Stanford, and you'll learn more about her in a moment. So Lisa, welcome to our Bima.
I guess when you teach, you bring your own clipboard. That's the way it works. Shalom. What an absolute pleasure to be with you here tonight. And a huge special thank you to dear family and friends that have joined here tonight, and family and friends that are joining via live stream. I just packed them in tonight. That's just the way we're going. My name is Lisa K. Solomon, and I've been a proud member of Beth Am for the last 18 years. My husband, Glenn, and I just celebrated our high anniversary in this very sanctuary just a few months ago. We love coming to these summer Shabbat services and learning from our fellow members. It's a real honor to be up here today to share a bit of my story and to talk about this week's Parsha. So a little bit about me. I am an East Coast diaspora, originally from the mainline shtetl of Philadelphia, lured here by a very handsome tennis player whom I met in the 1997 Maccabiah Games. And in case you're wondering what sport I played, I was not an athlete, but I caddied for my mother, who played golf and won the team gold for the US. A fateful meeting at the Ramat HaSharon Tennis Center led to a long-distance relationship, which ultimately brought me to California. And in case you're wondering how my husband did in the games, he will tell you that he won Maccabiah bronze, and I will say in nearly 30 years of knowing him, I think he won life gold. Both of our daughters, Toby and Samantha, have been bat mitzvahed here at Beth Am, among the many simchas we've celebrated here. We've also been comforted through challenging times, including the passing of treasured family members, names and memories we honor in the plaques just outside. We've received communal support through terrible tragedies, including the death of my American-Israeli cousin, Captain Omer Nutra, who was murdered on 10/7 while serving a country he loved. I will never forget the kindness and comfort that Rabbi Heath gave me during some very painful and isolating moments, and the opportunity he provided me to honor Omer's memory publicly with this community. Right now, Omer's parents, Ronen and Orna, are with my parents, watching this live stream, and I love you all very much. Professionally, I teach classes on futures thinking and design, just down the road at Stanford at the D School. Classes like View from the Future and Inventing the Future, which I co-taught for many years with fellow Beth Am member Tina Seelig, who's with us tonight. The premise of our class was to help students answer the question, should we build it? Not can we build it? In essence, to equip them how to think like good ancestors. I've authored a few books, including a chapter in a brand new anthology called Leading for Tomorrow. And I'm the host of a podcast called How We Future, which features conversations and stories of hope, hype, and gratitude, helping more of us feel productive agency and opportunity amid the overwhelm of this moment. On the podcast, I've explored how imagination opens up possibility, talking, for example, to the directors of ASU's Center for Science and the Imagination about how science fiction can inform science fact, and in conversations about speculative futures built on empathy and human emotion, what my guest, Ahmed Best, a Star Wars Jedi master, calls the Force in real life. We also explore how building preferred futures means showing up and doing hard things in the difficult present. learning from people like Allison Levine, who led the first all-women expedition to Everest, about what courage really means in extreme conditions. Rabbi Shira Stutman, who talks about Chesed and how to build community. NCAA winning coaches and athletes who prioritize citizenship as much as winning. And fellow Bethel members like Jennifer Dolsky and Matt Abrahams, who embody leading with purpose and communicating clearly. My goal is to make futures thinking more available to more people, not by pretending that the overwhelm isn't real, but by showing what's possible when we imagine and build together. As one of my fabulous guests, Jeffrey Rogers, has said, the future is too important to be left to the futurists. All of this futures work doesn't mean I know how to predict the future. Quite the opposite. It gives me a posture, a mindset, and set of practices to be even more curious, more humble, and more open-minded about how the future might unfold, and my role in shaping it. I've been doing this work for over 20 years, and what continues to fascinate me is that while we're all taught history in some formal way, classes, masters, PhDs, almost none of us are taught futures. And yet, when we pause to think about it, which one of these can we influence? The future or the past? Feels like a big oversight to me, just saying. It turns out that imagining new futures is an innate gift we all have. It's our human ability to think about the future, both near and far. And this biological capacity to prospect is fueled by another magical human capacity, our ability to reflect, to think about what's come before us. Judaism is particularly unique in the futures world because it has these two core components, reflection and prospection, built into its core operating system. Think about the concept of Lador Vador, generation to generation. It's a communal muscle of generational hope and resilience built into our tradition for thousands of years. Or our rituals around the high holidays that are coming up next month. A yearly cycle of reflection and renewal. The act of teshuvah, not just repentance, but a return to our better selves by reflecting on the year we've had and the opportunity to repair what we may have wronged in service of a better year ahead. Reflection serving prospection. Passover is another incredible example of futures thinking steeped in our tradition. At the Seder, we're commanded to tell the story of Exodus from Egypt, not as one removed from thousands of years ago, but through empathy for our enslaved ancestors and what they experienced, as if we ourselves were enslaved. This past year, I created a futurist Haggadah supplement with two wonderful colleagues, Becca Levis and Suzette Brooks-Masters, to infuse future practices into that special holiday. In it, we explore how the past, even when painful, can feel safer than imagining our future. And yet, amid this time of threat and uncertainty that puts us in a cycle of reaction, it's not enough just to survive. We need to boldly imagine the Jewish people thriving for millennia to come. Fundamentally, we can't build futures we haven't first imagined. This is the exciting moment where I get to connect my futures work to this week's portion, Ra'eh, in the book of Deuteronomy. Ra'eh, translated to see, is one of the most pivotal moments in the Torah. Let me paint the picture for you. The Israelites are standing on the edge of the Jordan River, about to cross into the Promised Land, the new home they've been wandering for 40 years. After all of this wandering, some new questions arise about their future. How are we going to live together? What is the future that they envision for them and their descendants to come? And Moses, able to see the land, but unable to go himself, passes along some guidance from God. It starts, "See, I set before you today a blessing and a curse. Blessing if you obey the commandments of the eternal God, and curse if you do not obey the commandments. Essentially, he's saying, a good life awaits you if you follow the laws established by God, like the obligation to destroy idolatry and to adhere to the principles of charity, dietary laws, holiday guidelines, and so on. And life won't be so great if you don't follow those laws. This is Moses' final teaching to them before the crossing on how to be a self-governing people. His last chance to prepare them not just practically, but spiritually and morally for the choices they're about to make as individuals and community. Now, I did a little digging into this Torah portion and learned there's something really interesting in the grammar in the text. Scholars have noted that in the passage, the Hebrew word for see is singular, a command to each person individually. But the rest of the passage, before you, a blessing and curse, is written in plural. Moses is essentially saying the blessing is an invitation for each of you personally, individually, to use your capacity to imagine and see the kind of society you want to build together. Looking at this through a futures lens, this is not about prediction or control. It's about setting the stage for agency and engagement. He's saying, look what's possible. I'm passing along guidelines on how to live, but it's your choice. What kind of community do you want to create as you enter this land? It can be hard to be optimistic and feel like we have productive choices about the future at a moment that feels so relentless. The rise in anti-Semitism, deep rifts around Israel, extreme polarization, shifting political landscape on both sides, an implosion of trust, societal and intergenerational loneliness, a changing climate, and so much more that just feels so big and hard to influence. And yet, as Ra'eh reminds us, the blessing is in asking and exploring, each of us, individually and together as a community, to look at a longer horizon and ask, what kind of world do we want to build? What are we willing to consciously choose? And although some of these challenges can feel so big, the blessings and choices can also be quite small. In my family, for example, we have a practice of reflecting on what we call menshi moments, naming when someone has been menshi to us or when we have been menshi to others. Naming the choice and the blessing. These small acts of intention and kindness, noticed and celebrating, shepping nachas, I learned from Rabbi Shira, that's practice in action. Steeped in the Jewish tradition is the idea that we are a blessing. Think of how often we hear that throughout any service and our prayers. And in this passage, and throughout many of our prayers and rituals, we're reminded that the blessing begins with our capacity to see beyond what's plainly visible, to imagine a better tomorrow, and then to choose to work toward it amid the ambiguity. Not someday when the future arrives and when we fully understand it, today with all of its messiness. And here, as we sit and pray together in our beautiful sanctuary, as we navigate our own uncertain terrain, and as we wonder what's possible. That's the gift of Ra'eh. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Lisa. For some of us,